Hello, everyone. Welcome in, and thank you, Apoptosis, for joining me. This is 2 weekends in a row now.
Yes, it is. I'm getting my double dose of Aorite this month. Quite happy about
Hey, man.
it.
Likewise. And this time we're doing an interview. So, I'm really excited. I feel like you're such an interesting guy, and you got a lot going on, man. I'm excited to dive in. I was making the question list, and I feel like I say this every time, but it's true for all of you wonderful guests I've had on. It's like I can't ask all the shit I'm curious about in an hour and a half. Like I gotta cut some stuff. Um, so
It's
yeah,
a
it's gonna be
difficult
a fun
part.
time, man.
Absolutely, I'm excited, man. Absolutely, doing the archive with you guys obviously was a ton of fun. So more than happy to be here and chat with you about all sorts of fun stuff. So
Great. Well, let's just we'll start with like the light, easy stuff. We'll get into some tangents. I'm sure I can't wait for them. How do you describe who you are and what you do to people who maybe don't know?
Hmm. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a good question. I would say first and foremost that I am the Goblin King on Twitch. That is my self-prescribed moniker. And I'm a full-time StarCraft 2 Twitch streamer slash content creator. Pushing in that direction anyways. Right now I'm working double time basically. So two jobs at once to try to
Hmm.
make that dream happen. But
Yeah.
yeah, in a nutshell, that's me.
Wow. Yeah. Lots already. So okay, how did you first get drawn into StarCraft?
That is a great question, actually. So I played RTS when I was a kid. I played like StarCraft, and Brood War. I barely remember. I was like, oh, the Archons. I remember specifically. I thought Archons looked really cool in
Hmm.
like original StarCraft, and I played Warcraft 3. That was like my intro. Those were my introduction games to Blizzard, and I fell in love with Warcraft 3 and Frozen 3
Hmm.
because I was more of like a lore junkie when I was
Ah.
when I was a kid, right? And I loved the world that they had made and everything like that, and the custom games as well. So that was like my go-to. That was like my go-to game. All right. So I've been a Blizzard fanboy pretty much my entire life. When World of Warcraft came out, I still play that to this day,
Hmm.
right? I've played since it's come out all the way to up till
Oh
now.
wow.
Um, so that's a little bit of the Blizzard background there. But why specifically I picked StarCraft 2 is actually because of Twitch streaming.
Mm.
So when this is slightly tangential, but I'll just follow you. I'll take you down this path, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
When I first started streaming, I always liked having a hobby or something that I wanted to do, right? Like a project that I was working on.
Hmm.
And I was in a band for a while. I was in a band for like 3 years, and I left that band because they wanted to do some other stuff, and that's totally cool, totally fine break. But I kind of was like, okay, well, I don't have a thing that I'm like doing
Mm.
now. I'm not
Yeah.
working on music anymore, so I kind of want to find something. And I never had watched Twitch previously. I
Hmm.
really didn't. Like, I was like, it's not really my thing. I don't have time. But I thought it was a really neat idea, and it scratched that tech itch that I had, and it
Ah.
scratched that gaming itch because I still loved gaming all of my life, and I will to the day I die for sure. Um, and I know this is a long story, probably
No,
more
it's
than you were
great.
hoping
This
for
is
in
this is
question
what we're
one.
here for. People love the tangents, man.
um, so to start it off, I started with Witcher 3. I was like, I wanted to play this game and I'll just stream it, whatever. And so I started my baby steps there. I was streaming to nobody and slash my one or two friends that I was telling that I was doing for.
Hmm.
And then I was like, okay, well, this is fun. I really want to try to actually. And then I like made a schedule for it and things like that. And I started playing. I beat Witcher 3. And I'm like, okay, this seems really hard because if you ever want to have recurring people come back, you got to like play the same thing or play the same
Mm.
stuff. And I was sort of figuring that out holistically. So then I moved to Overwatch actually. So I liked Overwatch. It's pretty fun, first person shooter. I'm not by any means amazing at it, but I thought it was pretty cool. Um, but I got really frustrated because it was a team game.
Yeah.
It was a team game, and I mean, I know the meme is "I'm good, my team is bad," but I sincerely wanted to improve at the game, and I
Hmm.
didn't know whether am I doing something wrong? Should I have done something differently? It's very hard to improve at those kinds of games unless you have a team that you play with over and over, or you're getting lessons from somebody who's really big or something like that. So I got really frustrated and I was starting to tilt because I couldn't get
Hmm.
past this one rank, and I had no tools and I had no idea what I was doing wrong.
Yeah.
So then I looked at the games available and I actually talked with a friend of mine. His name's Alex. He's Lone Gopher on Twitch and everywhere else. But I said I want to find something that I can actually maybe try to like get a community, like
Mm.
just for fun. Again, everything at this point is just for fun. But it'd be kind of neat, to have the same people come in. It seems like a really fun thing. So we looked, and I remember we were like, "Okay, it can't be any of the top games because they're so oversaturated. It's
Mm.
just impossible. There's no way unless you're like a pro or you're just insanely lucky." So then we scrolled down a couple times, and we said, "Okay, it can be any of these ones, 2,000 viewers and higher, but below those top eight." And StarCraft 2 was one of those. And I played
Mm.
StarCraft 2 very briefly when I was in college, first year of college. And I said, "Well, let me do that one." And I kind of made a checklist of like what I want out of a game. And StarCraft 2 hit all those things. It's infinite
Ah.
replayable. There's an infinite skill ceiling. You literally can't ever be the best at the game. And there's easy tools for improvement. And everything that you do is either you win or you've lost by yourself. And
Mhm.
there's no team. That was the
Yeah.
big thing. And then to cap it all off, so I kind of picked StarCraft 2 and I said, okay, this is great. To cap it all off, the very first day I streamed StarCraft 2, I got a raid from Winter Gaming for like 1,400 people. And I had never received a raid of any sizable amount, even remotely close to that. And I said, okay, I'm staying with StarCraft 2. And so
Yeah.
from then on, I just had done that.
Wow. So Winter sealed the deal, man.
Winter sealed the deal, man. He did. He did. It
Very
was it
cool.
was looking good, but he really stamped that one shut. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it seems like you approached it so mindfully, right? Like I've heard, most people kind of their story starts like yours did, right? Like
Mhm.
my own story starts like yours did. Oh, played RTS as a kid, really kind of liked it. Archons
Yep.
looked cool, like stuff like that, right?
Yep.
And then usually the next part is, and then StarCraft 2 came out, so I played it, right? But like
Yeah.
with you, it was very much streaming first, which is kind of an
Yes.
interesting thing. Yeah, that's actually I think the first I've heard anyone say that, which is really kind of cool. I'm curious, what rank were you in Overwatch when you decided like, nah, this is like
Oh,
too difficult?
I don't even remember. I can't even remember what the ranks are. If they're the same
Mm.
as StarCraft, I think I was probably like what the equivalent of like plat, maybe low diamond player
Hmm.
would be. As I did play it a significant amount for several months and
Yeah.
genuinely did try to get good, but there's just like natural skill will just take you farther in that game. And I'm
Mm.
by no means saying I'm naturally skilled at first person shooters because I'm not. There are
Hmm.
people that will just mop the floor with me, but I don't know. It was just something I played for a while. So probably like plat or low diamond or
Hmm.
something. Maybe probably platinum actually.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
What role did you play, or did you kind of flex?
I played two characters at the time. They have released since many characters. This was like 2 years ago, right?
Hmm.
I literally haven't played Overwatch in probably 2 or 3 years. I played Reaper because he just was cool. I thought he was cool. And I played May. And
Mm.
I really liked playing May a lot actually.
Hmm.
Because she just seemed brokenly good and overpowered. She had a ton of utility, but she also could do a decent bit of damage and could seemingly solo any person in the game if they didn't
Mm.
know what to do. So
Hmm.
it was a very fun character to tool around with and had a lot of impact on your team more than well I do a bunch of damage. You can do lots of clutch stuff and that
Right.
was appealing to me and I thought that was cool.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. And Reaper was just because he's the most metal choice you could make, right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, he has like the shotguns, and I thought that was cool. His teleport, I always thought was really neat. I mean, I feel like people really, at least where I was, underutilized that. So I
Mm.
always thought it was kind of sweet to like try and insta gib some like healer. He's
Hmm.
like an assassin kind of role, right? He's
Hmm.
not like sit in the front, do damage, anything like that. But again, I haven't played, and I have no clue really what I'm talking about. This is just which is a part of why I stopped playing. It's because
Mm.
I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing anything right. I don't know if this is
Right.
what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah.
I have no clue. I'm just gonna tool around with it. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
but yeah, he definitely was the coolest. I played Hanzo for a while too.
Mm. Yeah.
He was always a fun character, the
Hmm.
archer guy. He just also had a lot of really neat kind of tricks he could do and one shot kills kind of stuff too.
Mm.
So
Yep.
that was pretty fun.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So you said this is like maybe about 3 years ago or so that you kind of made
Mhm.
this big switch and you move over into StarCraft.
Yep. Yep.
Nice,
Absolutely.
nice.
Yeah, about 3 years.
It's funny to me, like, because when I think back, just in my recollection, it's like, well, you've just been a part of the scene for like forever, right? Like I've seen you in Twitch chats. It's,
No,
like it,
yeah.
yeah, in my mind's eye, you go back to like, before me kind of thing. Cause I feel like you were just always there.
No, I started it wasn't even at the beginning of Legacy of the Void.
Mhm.
I started, like, partway through Legacy of the Void already.
Wow.
I skipped Wings of Liberty. I played, like I said, I played in college a little bit,
Mhm.
my first semester of college. Um, it was, new Blizzard game, cool, yeah,
Yeah.
Starcraft, I remember this is cool, let's play it, whatever. Um, and I played Wings of Liberty a little bit there. Um, but then I completely skipped Heart of the Swarm, and I completely pretty much skipped Legacy of the Void until, I mean, it's been out for much longer than 3 years, so,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just really got into the game, just hardcore 3 years ago, so.
Mhm. Awesome. So backing up a little bit, to the sort
Mhm.
of overall, like, how did you come upon the idea and the branding of the Goblin King? Because it's so rich, right? Like the
Yeah.
stream assets and all of the aesthetic, right, is so strong.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. There's the true story, and then there's like the fake story that
Oh, I want both.
you want both. Okay, we'll start with the fake story that I tell everybody, and the reason why are you the Goblin King? Um, is I always just tell people there was an opening, and I decided to take it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have a reason. So the real story behind it is I was sitting with my cousin. Actually, I think we were driving somewhere, or we just driven somewhere, and I was talking about Twitch and things like that. And he knew that I did it, and he was and still is one of the biggest supporters of my stream. And I was like, I want to come up with like a thing, like I don't want to just be like this is me and that's it, right? I always thought it was cool when streamers and YouTube people had like their shtick, their
Mm.
brand, whatever
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
was, right? And like for some instances, like Livy B, right? Everything she has is
Yeah.
the beehive, the bee fam. All of our emotes are around bees and things
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
honey and things like that. And I thought that was cool, and I've seen other streamers do it, certainly.
Yeah.
Um, and I saw a lack of that in the StarCraft scene for the most part. Not to say you have to have this or you're
Mhm.
gonna fall behind or anything like that. So I just was thinking like, man, what could I do? Like to do that. And I think it may have actually been him. I can't remember now. I think it was him though that suggested we were kind of on the fantasy theme.
Mm, yeah.
And he suggested goblins, and I'm like, okay, that's perfect because I love goblins in fantasy. I think they're so cool. They're like they're not strong, they're not smart, they're nothing, they're not good at anything, but there's tons of them, and they're very sneaky, and they're very conniving, and they're very
Mhm.
clever. And I always thought that was a really cool approach to StarCraft 2 in
Mhm.
general. Is you don't necessarily have to play the best game, but so long as you can catch them maybe by surprise, you're in a good spot. So started there. It's definitely was very like cringe for me at first to be like, I'm the Goblin King, because no one's gonna call you that, right? You're not just gonna be, oh yeah, no, just start calling me that, and then people will catch on. But you get past that, right? You do that for like a week. He's, welcome to the Goblin Cave, all of that stuff. You just stick to it. And I'm really glad that I did, because like
Mm.
you said, it's made so many things just crazy easy.
Mhm.
Emotes, I don't even have to think about. It's made a lot of really nice stream assets and things like that. And I've been working with a fantastic artist, Netherbat. She's amazing, and she's done all of my artwork since, and her style I think perfectly fits with what I'm going for. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the combination of the two, I think, really kind of hammered it home. So.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned, kind of like looking around at this and like how can I do a good job, and like you
Mhm.
mentioned specifically Livy B, right? Like I think she even has a degree in graphic design. Like that was like her thing before.
Yeah,
So like
I
it
think so.
makes
Yeah,
sense that her stuff is like like totally on point. Um
absolutely.
yeah, and I think like as is becoming very apparent to me, through this conversation, like you really, really gave a lot of thought to this stuff, right? I mean, you didn't just
Mhm.
kind of like, even if it started for fun, you didn't just like half ass kind of walk into streaming, like, I don't know, whatever. Like,
Yeah. I mean, well, so when I first started out, I kind of did do that
Mm,
a little bit. Like I didn't have a direction, I didn't have a goal, I didn't have a plan in mind. And that's totally fine. Like you can do that as long as you're having fun. If that's what you want to do with streaming,
mhm,
that's great, But if you do want to specifically build something, I want to hit affiliate. I want to have a community. Whatever it is, right? Whatever
mhm,
your
mhm.
streaming goal is in general. It doesn't have to be I'm going to make this my full-time job in my
Sure.
life or anything like that. Um, then I think that a lot of people have a big misconception about, in my opinion, the way that you should approach Twitch in general.
Mhm,
Um, because you're not gonna. The thing I've learned probably the most from streaming on Twitch is nothing is ever gonna just happen to you.
yeah.
Like you will never. You'll have opportunities for sure. They'll present themselves, but you have to do a ton of the legwork in
Mhm,
order to even get those things or to capitalize on them. When I got rated by Winter for 1,400 viewers that one day, that was fun. That was great. Don't get me
mhm,
wrong. And again,
mhm.
it helped me cement what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for that kind of raid. I didn't capitalize on it. I didn't like probably, cascade that off as well as I could have
Mm,
nowadays or
mhm,
something like that. But at the same time, at that time, it wasn't that big of a deal, right? I was just doing it for fun. Now I think about that stuff a lot more. I think about I think about Twitch in general. Yeah, I think about it constantly, just literally all the time.
mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm definitely the same way. Like I'll be doing something totally unrelated at work, just be like, "Oh my god, I have to make that overlay." And it's like all I can think
yeah.
about for the next hour and I have to be like,
Mhm.
"No, no, no, you have to like pay the bills right now. Like this overlay is a sick idea, but it's not like what you're supposed to be
Yeah,
doing."
yeah.
Um
I hear that for sure.
but yeah, I think it's really cool though that like you've taken this mindful approach and also like that you have paid attention to sort of what are people doing right, right? So like the Livy example
Mhm,
and the branding and stuff, like it that's another subject that has come up a lot in these interviews of like um sort of the folks that came in, between like 2 to 4 years ago, like you and I both did. We
mhm.
had these examples of people who had already done it, and particularly in StarCraft, many of them doing a really really good job. And so it's kind of neat to look at that and be like, ah, yes, I'll have a little bit of that and a little bit of this, and like you're doing that
Oh
thing,
yeah.
it's really kind of fun.
Mhm,
And then you get to obviously, add to it and make it your own. Um, Before I get too much deeper down the rabbit hole, I want to
mhm.
just talk about how did you pick your handle? How did you settle on apoptosis?
Yeah, that's another great question. So that is yeah, right. My handle is Apoptosis 808. The 808 part of it is the area code for Hawaii, which is where I currently live.
Ah.
So that's why 808. I did try Apoptosis, just that username
Mm-hmm.
first. It wasn't available. Someone already had it. So I had to add some numbers to it. I like usernames when you don't have to add numbers. I think they're a lot more impactful, but
Mm.
yeah, the numbers don't really matter too much. So I just pick numbers that I like. So the apoptosis part. So funny enough, the meaning of it has kind of changed for me
Mm.
slightly. When I
Mm-hmm.
first actually picked it, it was just a cool term. So apoptosis is a real word. It is a biology term. I don't know if you know it, but I'll just explain it for people
Yeah,
who might
sure.
not know it. It's when cells essentially, they call it cellular suicide, right? It's when cells essentially destruct or kill themselves so that they stop from becoming cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that that was I just thought it was cool, to be honest with you. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, this seems like a really neat handle. I had gone through handles before, and I kind of decided Twitch. I was gonna take a new one, and so I picked that. Um, what I later actually learned is that an oversensitivity to apoptosis, that like process, if you will,
Yeah.
is one of the things responsible for the blood disease that I currently have.
So
So,
interesting.
it blew my mind when I saw it because I literally
Yeah.
picked it originally just because I'm like, this sounds cool, this
Mm-hmm.
seems neat. And then I find out later on that no, this actually really applies to you
Oh
just by
man.
happenstance. So I kind of just lucked out. So now, I mean, explaining that whole story to people sometimes is like okay, it may take away from it. So sometimes I will just tell people like, "Hey, what does your name mean?" or whatever, and they go, "Oh, it's related. It's because of my blood disease. I have this and that." So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so yeah.
Oh, no, I like the full version, man. Like full, like not even kidding, like Nerd Chill's
Yeah.
tasteless. Like you don't it's fake, man. It's so cool.
It was crazy. It is
Oh,
nuts.
that's
It's nuts.
interesting. Well, and okay, so I couldn't help but
Mhm.
notice that the way that you phrase that, right? You're like it's kind of fortunate, like it's lucky, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I understand this because I'm also a person with so-called health stuff, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Intuitively, I understand it, but as a good interviewer, right? I have
Uh-huh.
to trip
Yeah.
over this for us so that the viewers
That's
can
it.
understand, right? So even though I get it, um, somebody out there on YouTube or perhaps in our live audience, our live studio audience, is like,
Mhm.
wait, what the hell? Why is this a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So clearly you think it's kind of cool that like the handle you picked sort of plays into this thing which
Mhm.
has been a struggle for you. Um,
Mhm.
but it also is very indicative of the fact that you have like fully come to terms with the fact that you've got
Mhm.
these health struggles and stuff, and it's just kind of a part of life for you. It seems like, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so the thing that's kind of is helpful in that way
Mm-hmm.
is, well, number one, I've had it forever. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
had it since I've been born, right? My blood disease is called black fan diamond anemia.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, just a TLDR is my body doesn't make enough blood for me to live.
Yeah.
So I've had to take medicine essentially to bring my blood levels up to a survivable level. Basically, it's
Mm-hmm.
still not recommended levels. It's just I have like half as much red blood as
Jeez.
everybody else, just at
Wow.
like a constant part of my life. But you can live. You don't need that much apparently,
Okay.
as I found out. Um, and it is a big deal. It does definitely affect my life. But I always try to say, I'm not a very religious person, but
Mm.
I do feel in a way lucky or blessed, if you will, whatever you want to call it. It's really not that bad. As
Mm.
far as the genetic roles you could have gotten in life,
Mm-hmm.
there's
Mm-hmm.
there's there's stuff that's 10 times worse. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it sucks, and I do feel the effects of it sometimes, and I feel some more effects of it now. Um, but it's really not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
The one that's negative effect to it that's I've been recently kind of coming to terms with, and it's just, it's a part of life, man. It'll try to knock you down. Is the steroid that I've taken to promote blood production, I
Mm-hmm.
cannot take anymore. Um,
Oh
it
man.
has very bad side effects, which you're if you take it for a long time, which I've taken it for 26 years, so
Yeah.
it's a long time.
Right.
um it'll start to just screw your body over.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that it started to screw me over is my hip.
Oh
I
man.
have something called avascular necrosis, which
Okay.
means my bone in my thigh that connects to my hip, my left one, is essentially rotting because it
Oh
hasn't
wow.
gotten enough blood flow for its entire life.
Yeah.
So it's kind of rotting. It's rotting while it's still living tissue with
Oh
inside of
man.
you.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that sounds horrible, right? It sounds like, oh my God, that sounds disgusting and awful. It just is kind of hurts. That's pretty much what
Sure.
it comes down to. It
Sure,
just kind of
sure.
hurts.
Right.
I see doctors about it and they're like, okay, well, eventually you'll want to get a hip replacement. But when do that when you can't take the pain anymore,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. So it's like I still have my legs. I can still walk around
Right.
and things like that. And
Just
now
kind of
instead of
hurts.
taking medicine, I go in for I get a blood transfusion every 2 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
So I just sit there. They just poke a needle in my arm. I sit there for 3 hours. I just let some red fluid go into my body, and I'm good for 2 months. It's like it's not that big of a deal when you
Right.
think of it. Out at the end of the day, it's one day out of 2 months. It's
Right.
6 times a year I have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what the hell am I gonna do? Right? Am I gonna
Right.
let that just like stop me from doing anything? No.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, actually you and I are on the same schedule. I don't have to get dripped for as long as you. So
Yeah.
again, it's all perspective, man. Like,
Exactly.
people in chat are like, "Oh my god, Apop, that sounds so horrible." And you're looking at it like, "Well, it's not as bad as the next guy." And then,
Oh yeah.
you
Not
know,
even close.
cue me, a guy in line a little bit in front of you. I'm like, "Well, I mean, I don't have to sit in the chair for as long as Apop. We both go in 6 times a year, but his is 3 hours and mine's 1, So it's
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's just a matter of like you can have whatever perspective you want in it,
yeah.
right? And you certainly have that same mindset as well.
Mm,
Well, like, okay, you can either sit there and complain and get salty and bitter about things you can't control, and like things that you can literally, are not going to affect your life in too many ways here. Or you can just say, all right, well, whatever. I like to always look at it as God is just trying to nerf me because I was too overpowered. So if I was just like completely just free and open and completely healthy, I would just be too good at life. And so they needed to nerf me a little bit.
Yep, yep. Take you down a notch. Makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
And along those lines, you've mentioned as you've been really, kind of trying to push your skill kind of to the next level,
hmm
you have noticed a difference, right? Between like when they sort of top you off, as you put it.
Yeah, so it's weird. I don't know if I noticed it. I haven't like done. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. I haven't done blood transfusions for a ton of time yet. It hasn't
Mm.
even been like a full year that I've
Hmm.
done this really. And I still take a very, very, very low dosage of my medication
Yeah.
just to kind of slowly get off
Taper.
that
Yeah.
slope. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, so I don't really notice necessarily StarCraft 2.
Mm.
I don't know that it really affects me there. It could. And
Hmm.
I do feel like I should track like daily, like how long has it been since I had a blood transfusion and
Hmm.
where is my general MMR sitting at, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then like as soon as they top me off, am I like a fucking superhero,
Right.
Again, they only the thing is though, they don't top me off to full. They top me off
Mm.
to half. I'm half. I get to
Yeah.
go to half. Um because there's just like a physical amount of blood that your body can deal with, I
Yeah.
think,
Uh huh.
and like an amount of fluid, if you will. Um, so that like they can't just like pump all the way up to where I should be, if you will.
Sure.
The where I do notice it though is the funniest thing, and I never noticed this before. It's stairs. When I walk
Huh.
up and down stairs,
Yeah.
if I had just received a transfusion, I walked it up and downstairs, whatever, no big deal. If
Hmm.
I'm like on that last week, I get like not tired, like I need to take a nap, but I'm like, oh shit, like I'm out a little out of breath.
Oh
So
wow.
I get like I'm like, ooh, okay, not like I need to sit down, I'm gonna pass out or
Hmm.
something
Hmm.
like that, but just like I'm a little
Winded.
winded. I'm
Yeah.
a little winded even just from climbing stairs. So
Huh.
cardio, things like that, which makes sense because I'm low on red blood. Your red blood's responsible for oxygen. So
Hmm.
hey, makes sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I guess you breathe harder because you're not pumping as much of it around, and that's kind of that. Yeah, that
Yeah.
definitely makes sense. So, okay, we kind of talked about sort of origins in streaming. We talked about origins in StarCraft. What about gaming in general? Do you have kind of like an earliest gamer memory, or like what really kind of sucked you in?
Ooh. So there's several things. Yeah. I mean, back in the day, I have a brother still, but I lived with my brother back then. He lives in Nevada right now. Um he was into gaming before me, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Um, he played Everquest. I'm sure
Uh-huh.
you've heard of that.
Yep.
And so he played it, so I played it. Like
Sure.
whenever he wasn't playing on his account, I had like a character that I had. Again,
Mm-hmm.
I had no clue what I was doing. I had no clue what was going on, but I played anyways. And I just was like, this is super fun. You
Mm-hmm.
like you have your character, you can move around, you can do all these things, you can fight monsters. This is super cool. Um, he also, since I was just a little kid, had like a Super Nintendo. He had like a Nintendo 64. We had a original PlayStation, stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. Um, my dad was a lawyer, so we weren't like rich or anything like that, but we were like, okay, Christmas we could get like a console or
Ah,
something
yeah.
like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it'd be
Mm-hmm.
cool. So if you were to ask me a specific earliest memory I have, I do have one in particular, and it's just the most fleeting thing. There's two. One is of my dad accidentally stepping on our PlayStation, and he's a big dude, so it just fucking broke. Like it
Oh
was just
no,
done. Is
dude.
totally on accident. I don't even remember if he like bought a new one. I don't know. The second was on either that same PlayStation or something. I was playing Castlevania, and I couldn't read. So I would ask my mom to come in and read for me whatever was happening on the screen because I didn't know what was
Yeah.
going on or what I was supposed to do. So I would call her in. I'd say, "Mom, can you read this?" So I didn't know how to read yet.
Yeah. Oh man, that's super fun.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I mean, I guess the PlayStation getting smashed isn't fun, but yeah, the
No, that
Castlevania
went. I
memory is
remember
cool.
we were pretty upset. We were
Oh
sad
man.
about it, but yeah, it happens, right?
Oh, that's like the worst. That goes like orders of magnitude beyond like you walked in front of the TV and I lost. Come on,
No, he
mom. Like,
he straight up just stepped on it. Like it's
ah,
completely. It's probably out in the middle of the room where it shouldn't have been or anything. He just stepped on it.
just
It's like,
just walking through his living room. It's his house kind
mm-hmm.
of thing.
Yep. Giant Lego that we really cared about.
Ah,
But yeah,
so
I've
brutal.
just I don't have a time in my life that I remember when I wasn't playing a game at some
Mm-hmm.
point. Like I seriously don't remember a time when I wasn't just absolutely in love with and enamored by video games.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember
Even
what you played as in Everquest, or did you have like a
I
bunch
played
of characters?
I played one character. I had a froglock shaman.
Oh man, very
So
cool.
it was one of the EverQuest had something like 12 or 13 expansions. It had some
It was a
crazy
lot.
number. It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
a
yeah.
ton, right? And my brother had I don't even know how many at the time, right? Like I'm not sure. Um, but one of the characters was it's literally like a frog humanoid person. And you
Yeah.
remember EverQuest, right? It's all like blocky cubism, basically, graphics, right? Which was amazing at the time. It's not that bad
In
today.
my mind's eye, it still looks good. Like
Yeah,
I almost don't want
exactly.
to look at pictures of it now because I
No,
remember it
yeah.
looking pretty good.
Well, it was like the game itself was was legit, and it would still
Yeah.
hold up to today's standards for sure.
Mm,
And people still play it. That's the thing. There are
yeah.
still people that play like Legacy, like RuneScape Classic, right? They
Hmm.
still play like EverQuest Classic, and
Yeah.
there were rumors of EverQuest 2 coming out for a long time. I don't even know if that happened. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't either.
I played yeah, it was called a frog lock, and they were basically just swamp frog people. And I played a shaman, which was like a druidic type nature spellcaster that also hit stuff.
You had to.
That's basically all I remember.
You had to like
Yeah.
run chance, right? With that one, I feel like.
So it was I remember that one thing you could do like is God, see, I like barely remember any of the
It's so
terms for
long
these
ago. Yeah.
places. It's so long ago, but there was like it wasn't a bazaar, but it was like a central place that held these portals to other lands, like
Hmm.
that you could
Hmm.
go to. And I remember I used to sit there and I would sell buffs to people because there was
Yeah.
one buff that shamans could do apparently that was really good. I think it was called like Spirit of the Eagle or something like that. SOE, I think.
That
And
sounds
I
familiar.
haven't thought
Yeah.
of this in forever. But yeah, and so I remember I don't know why I would do it, but I just thought it was cool because people would come up to me and give me money for
Right.
like me hitting a button. I just thought that was my I was literally like 8 or 9 years old at the
Yeah.
time. And so I would just sit there and sell that. And I
Hmm.
would yeah, that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
That's like all I would do.
I can't remember. I was like one of the caster classes, and like one of the things you could do was like teleport people. So I did the same thing. You like
Yes.
you sit there, hey, you want to ride, buddy? Like, that'll be
Yeah,
5 gold or
exactly.
whatever.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
think it had platinum in that game. That was like high
Ah, yeah,
money. It
yeah,
was
yeah.
flat. Yeah, or
Uh huh.
something. But I knew nothing of, like, the actual progression of the game, of the things they were supposed to do. I just remember that game, like, the quests were ridiculous because you had to type specific things back to the
Hmm.
NPCs.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Jesus, how does anybody know this stuff? Like,
Right.
how did anyone figure this out to begin with?"
Yeah, and this was like at a time on the internet too where it wasn't like it is now where you like Google shit and expect to find it. It was like
Oh, yeah.
people had to like make it wasn't even like wikis
Mhm.
existed yet, right? You made a
No.
fan site and it wasn't like you just, like what's the like fandom dot whatever. It wasn't like
Yeah,
that. It was like
nothing like that, not even
yeah.
close, because you would find the information by talking to players.
Mhm.
You would find the information by talking to, like, joining a guild and talking to them and asking them,
Right.
"Hey, I don't know what to do here. Can someone help me?"
Yeah, it'll be like,
Um,
"Oh, you got to trade the NPC a feather in the middle of the conversation." To
ye
like, you're like,
yeah.
"How?" Like
Wow, well, what indication did I have that I
right.
needed to do this? And even back then, it was super hard. By today's standards, people would just like lose their flipping mind because it's like so many things of today's world at MMOs. Not that I think MMOs today are bad, but they're
Mm,
just so different.
yeah.
They're like it's especially like there's MMOs you can play on your phone, right?
Mm,
But there are a lot of those. There's like autopilot stuff where you don't even have to do anything. It'll
mhm.
actually just run through it all for you.
Right. Oh man, yeah. I'm like, I don't want to dive the EQ rabbit hole too much, but I'm thinking about like, the first time that I died somewhere really bad, like,
Mhm.
and you lose all your shit, and you got to try to walk back
Oh
naked
god,
to a
yeah.
place that was hard while you had all your stuff.
While you
Like,
had your
yeah,
stuff. I died, so obviously this was a bad spot for me.
right.
Again, it was a social game, which I think made it the coolest
Mm-hmm.
because, if you died, you could get your high level guild friend to, "Hey, can you
Right.
drag my corpse back to the entrance of the zone?" And so I can do like, yeah, all of that stuff was just so legit.
Yeah. Oh man, good times. So okay,
Yeah.
bringing us back on the rails a little bit. This is my fault. This EverQuest thing.
It's all good.
So, all right, you're in the process right now of kind of trying to make the leap to being, if not full time, more full time, right?
Yeah. Yes, yes, I am, absolutely.
Okay, so how did you first kind of decide, one, that you even wanted to make that leap, and then two, that you were like gonna make the leap?
Yeah, it was difficult, to actually think about and figure out. So, there were a number of factors that went into it. Um, for a majority of the 2 years, I would say, so if I've been streaming for 3 years, for the first 2 years, right, I was just having a good time, having fun, having a blast, etcetera, etcetera.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then I started playing Starcraft 2. That's where I started garnering more of that, like, community sense and regular viewers and actually, like, you know, all these other things that we look for.
Hmm.
How I made the transition to actually, like, push for full time, there's a number of big factors. One of them is, a vote of confidence from Neuro.
Hmm.
So I had become very good friends with Neuro. I consider him to be my best friend of today even. Um, but when I first started in the StarCraft 2 scene, I didn't know anyone, obviously.
Yeah.
I had no clue who anybody was, and so I was in college at the time, and I had most of my classes were online. So I was able to, like, I could just have Twitch going, and I also worked from home at
Mm.
the time too. So I had, like, a job that let me work from home. So I literally could just be home and in front of my computer all the time, which is what I wanted to do anyways. And so I just, like, slowly but surely moved my way up through the ranks of, like, people identifying who I was through chat. If
Mm.
you think about chatters, right, "Oh, I see you everywhere.
Yep.
Like, I just know who you are because I've seen you around." And eventually, started talking with Neuro more and more, and became a mod for his community. And I went to TwitchCon and BlizzCon and met him there, and just kind of it just spiraled from there. Anyways,
Hmm.
I digress on the original question here. Uh, he was one of the people who told me, he's like, if this is something you wanted to do full time, I think you have the chops to do it.
Mm.
I think you have the potential and the ability. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to
Right.
be like a walk in the park. It's not going to be you just kind of flip a switch and here you go. Now you're good.
Hmm.
But I think you have the personality, the drive, and the right attitude to do this. And so that was a big eye opener and kind of almost awakening of it, if you will, because I
Hmm.
had never even thought like, oh yeah, this is the end I'm going for. With how saturated Twitch is, it just seems like it's like a fucking drop in the bucket.
Sure. Yeah.
Like even being a 20 viewer average, 15 viewer average, you're something like the top 10 or 15% of Twitch,
Hmm.
just from what would be
Really?
considered relatively, you're high up there. Yeah,
Wow.
you have no clue how many thousands of one viewer people there are.
Mm.
Not to say that they're doing anything wrong or they're
Right.
bad or
Yeah.
they shouldn't be streaming, right? But I'm just
Right. Right.
saying,
Right.
like, you already are a very high percentage when you look at
Hmm.
the rest of Twitch at that time, right? Um, and so StarCraft 2, I'd started progressing higher and higher. And there was a time, so I got out of college and I got a real job, right? I started working IT and I worked it full time. And
Hmm.
so when that happened, I actually took a holistic kind of step back from Twitch and I stopped streaming StarCraft 2
Mm.
because I
Yeah.
was taking StarCraft 2 very seriously, and I sensed myself getting frustrated because I wasn't used to this schedule where I'm working
Hmm.
8 hours a day and then I would stream 4 hours at night.
Yeah.
I wasn't used to that, and I was having
Hmm.
a difficult time. So I took a step back for probably 7 months, almost seven
Wow.
months, 8 months. I didn't play StarCraft 2 at all. I still streamed, but I streamed very casual. I streamed like Darkest Dungeon. I
Hmm.
streamed like Final Fantasy, World of
Sure.
Warcraft, things like that. And I realized I started really missing the Starcraft community, even if I
Yeah.
didn't play. I was like, shit, man, like this sucks. And I miss seeing the people who would show up, not because they disliked me now, but because StarCraft was their game and that's what they wanted to watch.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I respect that. So I just eventually made the choice to one day like step back into StarCraft 2, and I felt more manageable with the time that I had spent at my day job. I felt more comfortable with it. I knew what was going on. I wasn't so stressed there anymore because
Mhm.
I kind of had fallen into my role a little bit easily, more easier
Mhm.
than whenever I first started. And the like re-ushering back was kind of hit me big.
Mm.
I went from going like 15 to 20 viewer streams, which are great, don't get me wrong, and I think the first stream back I hit like 55 or 60 or something
Wow.
like that with no raids and stuff. So I'm like, wow, this is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of started hitting that harder and harder. And I don't know if it was just because I was gone for a while or what. I don't really know what the cause of it all was. I hit
Mhm.
masters like a month after I came back and things like that. So to boil it all down, it was a lot of these things started hitting at once. My viewership started to go much higher.
Mhm.
I had a vote of confidence from peers that I really respected. And I had talked with people a lot before I decided to actually announce and make this happen. I think I talked with like Neuro, I talked with Pig, I talked with several other people as well.
Mhm.
And especially I talked with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Her name is Alicia. I always call her Mrs. Goblin.
Mrs. Goblin. Yeah, I was
Um,
gonna say, I know her name. What do you
yeah,
mean?
Mrs. Goblin. Her name's actually Alicia, but and I said, "Hey, you know, what if I tried to do this?"
Mhm.
COVID had kind of just started too.
Mm.
That's the
Mhm.
other thing is COVID had begun. We were at home constantly. We couldn't really go out anywhere, so I had all of this extra time.
Mm.
Where it's like, well, what else am I really gonna do? And so we talked about it, we discussed it, and it was around the time as well we were considering moving to Washington.
Mhm.
And so we figured that I could do it and we could go for it. And yeah, that was last June.
Mhm.
So ever since I at that time as well, I stepped back at my job. I only work part-time there now,
Mhm.
my day job, if you will. So I have
Yeah.
more time to stream at night, stuff like that. Yeah, but it was just a whole lot of kind of soul searching and thinking like, man, I really do love this and I really do want to have this life. And I know it's hard work and I'm not afraid of the hard work, but I want to make sure that I'm not screwing over, you know, my girlfriend and that we're always going to be able to make
Mhm.
rent and things
Yeah.
like that. I mean, that's at the end of the day, you'd love to not worry about financials and all that stuff. We
Sure,
just want to
sure.
follow the dream, right? But at the end of the day, you got bills you got to pay, just like you said. I
Right.
have health concerns I have to make
Yeah.
sure that I can live with and I can deal with, right?
Mhm.
And so we kind of evaluated all of that and temperature checked it, and then I'm still going. So
Yeah. Very,
apparently
very
not doing
cool.
too poorly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. Was that an easy conversation to have with work? To say, hey, like, I'll keep working here, but I'm not working as much, or was that like, was there resistance?
No, so it was like I said, it was around the time when we decided that or I'm sorry, we decided we were gonna move to Washington. We were like, okay, let's actually do this.
Mm, yeah.
And we wanted to move to Washington, and I'm actually moving to Washington in like 2 months, so it's
Yeah.
actually pretty close to now. So it wasn't too bad in that sense. It because the place I work for now is a fairly, you know, mom and pop, I would say, IT company.
Mhm.
We manage like small to medium sized businesses when you compare it to like global scales of their businesses that have hundreds of employees, right?
Yeah, sure.
Our biggest client maybe has like 40 computers, something
Mhm.
like that.
Mhm.
And that's just right for us, you know, and that's perfect. That it's a great niche that I think this company fills, and we do a good job. So I'm
Mhm.
happy with it.
Yeah.
Um, we had been bringing in some other people. So basically, I talked with him and just kind of laid it out for him. I said, "Hey, man, this is really what I want to do." And I was very honest. I'm usually a very honest person when it comes to that sort of stuff. I said,
Mhm.
to be honest with you, I don't have the financials to make this. I can't just like, okay, I'm doing this now. You know,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
can just rely on that all the way.
Right.
And so I said, I would love to still work for you part time. If that's not available, I understand. I will be probably pursuing something that I can just do part time.
Mhm.
So I did kind of frame it that way. I
Yeah.
like not to put you in a hard place that this is what I want to do. I really want to try to make it work here, but if
Mhm.
I can't, I will find somewhere else where I can make it work.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so he kind of rolled the numbers around, figured things out, and yeah, we came to the conclusion, hey, yeah, why don't you work? Right now I work like noon to 5,
Mhm.
which works for me because I stream overnight basically. So
Right, yeah.
I go to sleep super late, but I don't wake up till like 11:30 in the
Uh-huh.
morning. So and I'm actually going to continue working with him when I'm in Washington, but I
Mhm.
will, instead of working like a full 5 days a week, I'll only be working 3 days. So I'm, again, slowly but surely,
Uh-huh.
almost like my medication, kind of tapering off there as
Yeah,
much as
yeah.
I can. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, with that kind of stream schedule that you just mentioned, right? I think this is another like kind
Mhm.
of interesting thing about you, right? Was this like some of the other things you mentioned where it was a very tactical, like when is there an opening for me to stream StarCraft, or is that just like when you're awake and ready to kick ass kind of thing?
So it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
There is a bit of tactics involved, but it's also out of necessity too.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of jobs I could just normally work overnight.
Mm.
So if I did need to have some other source of income to help me support my house and
Ah.
family and everything, then I would
Mm-hmm.
probably have to be during the day. If it's during the day, that means that I can't stream during the day.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Hawaii as it is, so compared to the rest of the mainland, if I wanted to try to target the North American audience, um, you have to start at like you know, noon
Mm.
or 11 a.m. latest, right? Depending on the kind of space you're going for. And
Mm-hmm.
this was a question I had asked again those other streamers who I respected and trusted and had become
Yeah.
good friends with. I said, "Hey, what do you think? Like, is this stupid? Am I wasting my time if I stream it this hour?"
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much the resounding thing that I got back was, "You should stream at whatever time you can stream the most at."
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you can fit as many hours as you can, kind of in one solid block, that's when you should do it.
Mm.
Um, and there's back and forth on, hey, should you just grind as many hours as possible? Should you
Mm-hmm.
do less streaming, but you make that content more, you know, um, like robust or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
if you will?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's merit to both paths. But I think overall, the nighttime slot, I call it like the overnight shift. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
always call it. I have the overnight shift for America, basically. Um, it's actually been very cool. It's
Mm.
been very, very cool because I get to talk with people who do not live in America. I
Mm-hmm.
would say probably 90 to 95% of the people who watch my stream regularly do not live in America.
Mm-hmm.
They live overseas somewhere for me.
Yeah.
They live in a foreign country somewhere, which has been very cool to learn about them and learn about like where are you from and like, oh, that's awesome. I'm talking with somebody that lives in freaking Slovakia, and I'm talking
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
someone that
Yeah.
lives in France and Ireland, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of sick, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there is kind of a little bit of tactics involved. I start streaming almost at the time when North American streamers stop,
Yep.
so your potential to get raids from those people is kind of skyrockets a little
Mm-hmm.
bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is a decent hour because you'll see other gigantic streamers streaming in that time slot as well. That's when like Hearthstone streams. That's when
Mm.
like Lambo, you can see him streaming
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. That's when Roddy will stream. So there's certainly the viewership is there.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
possibility is there. Um, I noticed for some reason there's a lot of Protoss streamers at night. So I'm a Zerg player, so hey,
Uh-huh.
if you're looking for to scratch that Zerg itch,
Yep.
I'm one of the quote unquote only people that's streaming at that time. So it kind of worked out, but at the end of the day, if I were to kind of wrap it all up in a neat bow, that is when I can stream the most, so that's when I do
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, very cool. So we've kind of tangentially, hit a few of these names, and
Mhm.
I want to kind of begin the process. And I say begin the process because man, there's a lot to cover here of
Sure.
just talking about all of the different like shows and things and
Yeah.
collabs and stuff that you already have going. So I almost don't even know where to start. I guess we could say, some of the stuff that you've done with Neuro. So for
Mhm.
example, you have House by the Hearth, right? Is one that
Yes, we
jumps to
do.
mind. How did the idea for that well, okay, I guess maybe first tell anybody who doesn't
Mhm.
know what that is, and then
Yeah.
I'd love to get into like how did you guys decide to do that?
Yeah, so House by the Hearth is a every other week music discussion that Neuro and I will do where we will take extreme metal is kind of the only qualifier for it. We'll pick an album each. I'll pick one, he picks one, or sometimes we he'll pick two or and I'll pick two next week, whatever it
Hmm.
is, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
We've done a couple of viewer episodes too where we've had some um people who have given us the music throughout, I'd say, the ages, as it would be,
Hmm.
and we trust their like musical picks, if you will.
Yeah.
Anyways, that all came about. We have a very, very similar interest in music.
Hmm.
We both listen to an extreme metal genre that's called black metal.
Hmm.
And it's something that's not popularized at all.
Mm.
Majority of people would not like it, and that's totally fine. Like I'm very aware of that, and I have no issues with it. Right?
Sure. Sure.
Um, it's kind of very rare to meet someone else who will listen to that music and enjoy it on the same level that you do as well.
Hmm.
And people who listen to black metal, while being very weird, I will say as well, because I think there has to be something a little bit strange about you to
Uh huh.
enjoy that kind of music.
Yeah.
Um, they're very hardcore in how much they love that
Mm.
music because
Hmm.
it's this perfect niche for people who want that sort of thing.
Hmm.
Anyways, so we both absolutely love that music, and we're like one of the few people that we both know who love it. And it came about as something that we could do together on the Thursdays where we're not playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Hmm.
So that's sort of the other thing that we do. Um, but I had kind of thought about this, but he approached me with it actually, and he said, "Hey man, why don't do you want to like do this? This sounds like a cool idea."
Yeah.
And he had been getting into more of he talks it he calls it the voice of neuro, where
Hmm.
he does actually a lot of more the focus of that content is discussion. He
Hmm.
does philosophy discussions. He has Agent Smith he does on Sundays where he
Yep.
talks about world issues and world things that are happening. And so this is in that time where he was really rolling hard on that, and he still does. But he kind of, well, I don't have one for music. Let's do one for music. And so we
Hmm.
kind of just were like, hell yeah, dude, that sounds awesome. So we just
Yeah.
like play I think when we first started, we were playing World of Warcraft because we both play WoW Classic together as well.
Hmm.
We're in the same guild. We had been started it from day one. And so we would play that at the time when we were still gearing up our characters. Now that we're like so far in and we have nothing to do except for raid with other people,
Hmm.
we play like 2v2s or we'll play 1v1s.
Mm.
We'll just practice at the same time that we're talking about music. And
Yeah.
sort of the intention and hope for that is a not only to find music that maybe he hasn't listened to or I haven't listened to and add that to like our repertoire, if you will,
Hmm. Hmm.
which has happened many times.
Yeah.
Um, but also to bring music to people who may have not otherwise listened to this.
Hmm.
I am a massive fan of music. I love music, which if you couldn't tell, I was in a band, so
Yeah.
I absolutely love music so much. Um, and so that was very appealing to me. Like, oh yeah, let's like nobody would normally listen to this on their own, but maybe we can be their gateway to like
Hmm.
getting into this style of music that I did think is completely underrated and
Mm.
I think more people would love if they gave it a chance.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, very cool. So, when you kind of talk about this sort of deep love of music, is it
Mhm.
sort of scoped to your sort of specific genre niche that we've been talking about, or are you more wide ranging, but this is kind of what you want to sort of bring to the masses type of thing?
Yeah, I honestly wish and it's one of the things I hate about myself a little bit. I have a very narrow
Uh
amount of
huh.
music that I listen to. I
Yeah.
wish I loved other music.
Uh huh.
I really would love to be that person that can just turn like the radio on or listen
Mm.
to anything and find it to be pleasant and enjoyable and like, yay, this is nice, you know? That's just not me.
Hmm.
I can appreciate music and its technicality or the
Sure.
skill involved in the process, if you will, but I just won't enjoy it as something to listen to. So, um, my musical tastes have evolved over the years, just like everyone else's do, of
Hmm.
course. Um, but no, I like to say I listen to a very wide range of a specific brand of
Yeah.
music.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like I never thought about that piece of it that you mentioned, where kind of like flip on the radio kind of thing.
Hmm.
So like
I wish I was me.
yeah, like I don't have actually very good context on this because I feel like when I travel, most of the time I'm not driving around a lot, and so I don't have a good
Yep.
map in my head of like what is radio like, sort of across the country or whatever.
Yep.
But at least here in San Diego, right? There's like your top 40 and your like
Yep.
alternative and whatever some other niche stuff like country and whatever. And there's like sort of a like hard rock station, right? But
Yeah.
it's not like what I'd hear if I listened to one of you guys' episodes, right? So for you, do you listen to that and you're like, oh, this ain't it?
It's just it doesn't I mean, we're trying to describe, like, why do you like that music? And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Well, I
yeah.
like it because of the way that it sounds." Like,
Sure, sure.
that's, like, as best as we can ever do. I can
Fair,
try to
yeah.
explain, like, the technicality of it and the reason specifically why I enjoy, Magua or Ackless or whatever you wanna whatever black metal band you wanna bring up. But, at the end of the day, it comes down to this sounds good. This
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
me
yeah.
hyped up. This is like you get those nerd chills, if a little
Mhm.
bit, if you will, of like, holy shit, this is so good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Why that is, I have no idea. Why I don't feel that from listening to Nickelback or I have no clue, but I don't.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
I put the radio on and there's good rock music, there's good stuff out there, and I'm not trying to bash them or anyone's musical sense or style. And
Sure.
I try to make that as clear as I can.
Mhm.
There used to be a thing to tangent a little bit where
Sure, yeah.
before the whole DMCA wave and things like that, when
Mm,
people were
mhm.
fast and loose with music on Twitch, right? I would do song requests. And even though it wasn't something I was like, oh yeah, I love to do this. This is my character. They would people wanted me to do like song reviews, like, hey, listen to this song that I like. Tell me what you think of it, knowing already that I will not like it. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's just like, why do you want me to do this? Like, I don't understand. But anyways, yeah, I mean, it's kind of the music I listen to, at least in the metal, I listen to a lot of synth wave as well, and like
Mhm.
techno music and psytrance more recently. I feel like that's way more like people are like, "Oh yeah, that's cool, whatever. That's
Mm.
fine. That sounds good," or whatever
Yeah.
it is. But the metal that I listen to definitely turns a lot of people off. It's more of an acquired taste. I didn't
Mm.
listen to that like in high school even. High school
Mhm.
I listened to metal like Slipknot and Corn. I have a Corn tattoo on my leg
Mhm.
actually. Like all of this stuff, right? So it kind of went over the years. I started like, oh, I'll check out this band
Mhm.
called Dimmu Borgir. Like they're cool. Let me check that out. And then it's like, oh, recommended. Let me check the. And it's sort of
Right.
like you just slowly but
Uh-huh.
surely like start scraping away and then like losing other stuff. Like
Mhm.
this doesn't do it for me anymore. But these guys over here,
Right.
ooh, that's good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, uh the piece of it
Mm.
that I was driving at, I guess, was not so much why do you like what you like, but more it never
Mhm.
occurred to me that this sort
Mhm.
of hardcore metal fan experience is like
Mhm.
almost alienating in a way where you literally
Oh
like
yeah.
you turn on the radio and you're like shit there's nothing here for me, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe those sort of for lack of a better way to put it, like more accessible
Mhm.
bands
Yeah.
within the genre, and you named a few, right? Like you hear those on the like, oh, this is the heavy rock station or whatever, but it's like
Oh
peppered in
yeah.
there, right? So you still don't
Mhm.
feel at home, kind of thing, even if you're that guy, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's all music trends, right? Like
mm,
music comes and goes, and what's popular changes over the ages. The thing of it is, yes, in a way, it's alienating, but it's not in a way of like I'm so alone, like
mm-hmm.
damn it, or whatever, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
in fact a lot of black metal like listeners, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're a little full of themselves in a way where they thrive on that, like, "Oh, I
Uh,
listen to the good shit and everyone
yeah, yeah,
else
yeah.
listens to just garbage or
It's
whatever,"
it's a
right? That's not
almost
me.
hipster aesthetic kind
Yeah,
of a yeah.
it is 1000%. There's layers to it, man, that
Sure,
is
sure.
just ridiculous, of course, but, yeah, I mean, I guess I never really thought about it. It does kinda I was never really a radio guy in
Mm,
general. I never really listened to the radio. I've always had some kind of music player, things
mm-hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
Um, I've listened to a good decent bit of music over the years and different kind of stuff, but I've always just listened to whatever I wanted to listen to, and I never really I never really tried to pay attention too much to like, oh, this is what I don't even like Mrs. Goblin. She doesn't get mad at me, but she's just like, how do you not know any of this stuff? Like
Uh-huh.
there's oh, these guys just released a new thing, and I wouldn't even know who that is. Like
Mhm.
I don't know all these artists. I can't even give you an example of people I don't know because I just do not know them.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just been fun. You know, music is so great, and I think it's everyone's personal journey, right? And people take it more or less seriously if they choose to, and I would say I'm always jealous of people that love a wide range of music.
Mm,
And again, I just wish that was me. It's not
sure.
though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So you briefly mentioned wayfarers, and that's kind of, another thing that's been a big piece of this. I mean, you
Mhm.
mentioned kind of getting sort of streamer advice from like Neuro and from Pig.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I have to imagine, that kind of comes from a lot of those interactions, but how did wayfarers get started as a concept?
Yeah, so Wayfarers wasn't even the original incarnation of what we were doing.
Mm,
So originally we got the I have been a huge D&D nerd my whole life.
mhm.
That's been another one. My family, my aunt and uncle here in Hawaii, they own a comic book store. They still
Oh,
do.
wow. Yeah.
And they owned it when I was a little kid. So I got to go to the comic book stores, you can pick out whatever you want from the
Oh,
shelf.
that's so
My aunt
cool.
actually used to work at a like a wholesaler, like a middleman kind of deal before they
Mhm.
started shipping direct kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So her place was truly like the candy aisle. There's literally no one there. No one's going to come in. There just books after, like everything because they supply the whole island.
Mhm.
Anyways, so I've been around that my whole life. I've loved D&D and I still do. I think I started playing D&D when I was like 7 years old, 8 years old, something like
Mhm.
that. And I've never stopped. Basically, it came about a mutual viewer of mine and Neuro's. His name was Corporate Scandal,
Mhm.
was his Twitch name. Um, he had the idea. He's like, dude, you guys should do like D&D. I think
Mhm.
I'd talked to him before about D&D, and I knew that he played and whatnot. And so I messaged Neuro about it, and we kind of went back and forth and got the idea like, hey, this sounds cool. I wasn't even sure at the time when I messaged Neuro. He was a buddy, like he was a cool dude that I
Mm.
knew, but by no
Yeah,
means
yeah.
were we like friends or anything like that. Yeah, or something. Um, and so he shot the idea back and he said, "Oh yeah, that sounds neat. Let's push forward on that. It's a bigger project. It does require some more stuff." So
Mhm.
it was kind of like, here's our idea. I do not have the networking contacts to make
Mm.
this happen though, because
Yeah.
we wanted to do it with other StarCraft 2 streamers.
Mhm.
Um and so it was kind of on Neuro a bit to, hey, can you reach out to these people? You know them, I don't know them, kind of
Mhm.
deal.
Mhm.
And so he did, but it took us like 8 months from
Oh,
when we
wow.
first started the idea to actually have a session one.
Mhm.
And originally, it was the that Twitch viewer that I was talking about, Corporate Scandal. He was the DM. He DM'd for us
Mm.
at the time.
Mhm.
I was a player, and it was Neuro, it was myself, it was Pig, and it was Chibi Miharu.
Ah,
We
yeah.
were the
Mhm.
four players. Yeah, and that was a that was I can't oh gosh, I think it was called, yeah, we called it Age of Anthems. That was his campaign idea.
Mhm.
And so we played and we had a really great time. I played a goblin rogue, of course, because that's like my MO.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and eventually, like, we were having fun and everything was going well. Nothing like fell out or happened or anything like that. But Corporate Scandal kind of had more like IRL going on, and he
Mm.
got
Sure.
a new job. He was moving to Florida. He did all these things, and we were having a hard time kind of like making all the sessions. It would be like
Mm.
2 months would go by and we still haven't been able to kind of fix it. And we were planning on it being like at minimum once a month. Best would be once every 2 weeks. So we just
Mhm.
decided at that point, because it was like, okay, well, we're kind of planning for this slot and we need to free it up because we're not really doing it and we feel kind of bad.
Mhm.
So we just said, hey, we're just gonna stop this, and hey, if we can ever pick it back up in the future, cool, but no pressure. You guys do your IRL. That's totally fine. So no shade to him in the slightest.
Sure, yeah.
Um, but we still wanted to play D&D.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, I mean, I could DM. I've DM'd a lot. I was at first a little nervous to do it because I'm like, this is my first interaction with Pig. This is my first interaction with Neuro in a big way. It's my first interaction doing like a collaboration. A little bit nervous about it. Had gotten more comfortable since we did something like 10 episodes of that first one. And I said, okay, well, Neuro, you still want to do it? That's great. Pig, you still want to do it? That's great. Chibi Miharu was doing IRL stuff as well, so
Mm.
she decided to bow out, and that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But we're like, okay, we want to find a third person. And towards the end of when we stopped Age of Anthems and we're starting Wayfarers, we wanted to have a guest episode where we
Mm.
brought on Ash from Cockeyed Gaming.
Yeah.
So we actually just said, hey, do you just want to play? Do you just want to like join our campaign? And she was like, fuck yeah, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. It's like,
I like
okay,
that even
great.
in the paraphrase she says "fuck yeah."
Yeah, exactly. And so we figured it out. We kind of redid our characters. I helped out. I have my own method of the way I like to do it. And what we took some notes from the first campaign that we did it, which was it was very great. It was a great and cool campaign. It was a very top level. It was very high
Mm.
end. Like we're dealing with like the characters in the campaigns are dealing with like big issues and
Yeah.
things like that. Like right off the bat, it's like world ending problems that they're trying to solve. And it was kind of maybe a little hard for Neuro, who's brand new, and Pig, who is brand new, and Chimaharu, who is brand new, to really learn their characters in a holistic way,
Ah.
as well as like I'm saving a world that I don't really understand quite yet.
Mm.
It's just a little hard to transcribe that through in like a 3-hour session. So
Sure.
that's an impossible task for almost anybody. So one thing I said I wanted to really focus and hone in on was I'm going to keep it low to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing like you're in a small village, you're going to go fight bandits.
Mm-hmm.
Your big adventure right now is traveling a week to the town that's next over.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing if you survive that trip. You're
Right.
you're having personalized encounters with one-off characters or common folk or just lay people. Keeping it low to the ground. The way that we kind of described it was like Mandalorian to the Star Wars universe.
Mm.
Star Wars, the movies, gigantic ideas, whole galactic, battles happening,
Mm-hmm.
fighting for the freedom of the literal entire universe, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Mandalorian, he's a guy that lives in that world, but he's just a dude who's like going around and
Mm-hmm.
over time figures out that he's got like some gigantic greater purpose or whatever. But at first he's just like, I'm a bounty hunter and I'm trying to live. Like those are my
Mm-hmm.
two things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So we wanted to take that approach with it, and I think that worked out really well. And we're still doing it. We have a session next week, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
we're gonna be on GaryCon actually, March
Really?
28th. Yeah,
Oh,
we
that's
have a
fantastic.
we have a session on GaryCon coming up this month. We're doing a
Oh,
one
that's
shot,
so
so
cool,
it'll be fun.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those sessions are such a ton of fun. Like I haven't followed like sort of every episode to where I can tell you like the whole story.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting about that, so I find this is a difficult thing with any D&D
Mhm.
show, right? It's like
Sure.
the nature of it is it's going to be a 3-hour session. If you're going to bother getting together that many
Mhm.
people, like you got to put in some hours, right? And if people are going to do that and they're going to stream it, well, you got to do a series, right? So
Yeah.
now you're talking about, okay, even if it's a, every 2-week thing, so you're putting out 6 hours of content a month. And, for me, I find that like
Mhm.
I can't even keep up on Starcraft tournaments right now, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so it's rough a lot of the time with these D&D shows to kind of partake, even though I want to partake. Oh, this stuff is
Yeah.
so cool, right? And like kind of like the thing you're talking about where it's like your big adventure is going to the next town. Like I
Mhm.
remember being a kid playing these old school MMOs like EverQuest or Asheron's Call, and I viscerally remember
Yeah.
that experience of like, oh shit, getting to the next town actually is like this white knuckle experience of like, I
Yeah.
gotta run through a forest that's too high level for me and hope I don't lose all my stuff so I get to the next town so I can level up kind of thing. Like, and so these D&D shows are kind of a way to get the like MMO light experience, if you will, of like I don't have to, grind my life away playing whatever, but I can kind of dip in and out. However, I find it kind of a struggle with, like I say, keeping track of the narrative. But what I feel like you all do a really, really good job of is like, and I don't know if it's because you involve humor as much as you do or what it is, but I feel like I can drop in and I can watch 30 minutes of Wayfarers and be like, yeah, okay, I don't know exactly why we're on this mission or like, what the deal with this like bottle of potion you have is or whatever, but I could kind of infer enough and I know these characters and like I can have a good time watching just a little slice, which for me, I feel like you've captured something really rare there and it makes me like really love the show.
Well, I'm glad. I mean, that's not necessarily like the specific intention of it by any means,
Mhm.
but it's
Mhm.
definitely that definitely makes me happy that it's more accessible for people. I agree. I mean, I feel that way in when I first started working at a comic store, every single comic was on issue 800 something.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't fucking read this. There's no way. There's like, you're already like just years and
Right.
years and years of content. Like, how could I possibly ever know what's happening?
Mhm.
And I think that while D&D, obviously, yeah, there is a story that's going on here. Again, with our with the mindset that I'm trying to take with it, it again really does keep it low to the ground. You don't
Mhm.
have to be you don't have to be there from episode 1 to understand like, oh, they're fighting orcs or something like that, right?
Right, right, right.
You don't have to fight demons and gods and all this stuff every single episode in order for it to be interesting. In fact, I think the opposite's true, and it makes those other things more impactful. Like if you sprinkle in I almost tried to think of it. Have you read or have you watched The Witcher at all?
I have not read or watched it, no. I have a
Okay.
little bit of
Well,
surface familiarity with
highly
the games,
Yeah, I
but,
highly recommend it because they're amazing. It's amazing in my opinion. But it's more of a it's a high fantasy world, which Dungeons and Dragons is as well.
mhm.
That is just a struggle to survive on an average day. Like
Mm,
there's
yeah, yeah.
regular people who are like, "Well, I need to farm," and there's fucking gargoyles and shit flying around the town, and
Yeah.
I'm a farmer. Like I am not equipped to deal with this,
Right.
and that's where the Witcher comes in, right? He's like a monster hunter.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I kind of wanted to try to adopt that as much as I could. It's like everyday life just happens. There are people who do not have, they're not wizards and sorcerers. And they're, it's just like, no, dude, I'm just a butcher.
Right.
Like no, I'm just, I literally like, I'm just some random guy. I'm a sailor or whatever,
Mhm.
right? And it doesn't take someone who's been there from the first episode to understand those interactions. He's
Mm.
talking to a sailor. You have so much context already. He's not talking
Yeah.
to the grand archpriest of Tiamat or something like that, where
Mhm,
you're like, I
mhm.
don't have fucking any idea what this guy's supposed to be like. It's
Right.
like, no, he's a sailor. He's kind of like a salty dude. And, okay, you go from there.
Mhm, mhm. Oh, man, I really love that. I feel like that's such a cool and for me at least, and maybe it's more common and I don't realize, but it feels like a very fresh take, right? Where it's almost like the nerd in all of us wants to be like, okay, well, if I'm gonna play D&D, it's gotta be this grandiose, like,
Yeah, exactly.
like who's the guy who's like basically the god of this city? We're talking to him, or we're gonna kill him, or we're gonna strike a deal with him, or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's interesting that that same game framework can be compelling on that level, where it's like this sort of nerd, fandom
Sure.
kind of thing. And then also the gritty, like, hey man, like living while gargoyles are trying to tear up your potatoes is kind of shitty. Like,
It
this is a
sucks.
struggle.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to like to in one specific, I call it arc, right? Like, because I think of it in almost chapters of like a
Mm,
book in a way. That's how I
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
frame it in my head. It was literally they went to a town. It wasn't their main objective. There is a main story that has a
Hmm,
sort of
hmm.
fantastical thing about it, right? So I stick to that, but I love
Yeah.
side stories, side stuff too. They went to a town and basically they were just going to stay there, but they realized that the town had been plagued by a griffin that lived in a mountain nearby.
Hmm.
And for years and generations, it's never bothered them. But suddenly it was murdering people on the street. And they're like, well, we can't have that. But none of us are like, we're just dudes. Like I'm
Yeah.
a woodcutter. I build fucking horseshoes and things like that. Like I
Sure,
can't
sure,
go.
sure.
So you have the wandering adventurers that come to town. "Oh, we'll help you. We'll pay us or whatever." And I made it. This is where I think there's opportunity in storytelling to really just eke out as much value as possible.
Hmm.
It's a griffin. That's a fantastical creature. Certainly, it's not like the most crazy. It's not like
Hmm.
a dragon or something like that. But the way that I tried to spice it up was they had a choice. They could choose. The griffin was pissed off because there were spiders that invaded their mountain. And there were
Ah.
spiders that crawled in and were plaguing the mountain. So they could either choose, they could go kill the griffin, and the spiders wouldn't don't come out during the day, so they'll never bother the villagers, right? So the spiders aren't the direct issue, but it's the underlying problem. You can either go kill the spiders and hope that the griffin will leave them alone again, or they can go kill the griffin. And I offered sort of two moralistic choices for them to deal with and do
Mhm.
stuff with. So that's the kind of spice that I like to add. It's like, okay, it's spiders and it's like a bird. And it's like that it's not that huge of a deal. It's again not very difficult to understand, but
Yeah.
it's like, okay, now I'm making them choose. Now I'm
Uh-huh.
having them decide what these moral implications. You know, like yes, they got offered more. The way I tried to do it was though the griffin was like it's like a peaceful creature, quote unquote, unless it's
Mm.
mad. Um, they had more monetary and direct incentive to go kill that because
Mhm.
there was a person who was like, "I will give you all 100 gold each," or something like that, which is a
Mhm.
lot for them if you go do this. Where they got offered zero monetary incentive to go kill the spider, but there was moral incentive because they said, "Well, a search party went in there and they might still be alive. We're not sure." So it
Ah.
was up to them. They kind of, but it was fun, and I love those kinds of things the most.
Yeah, yeah. They picked the spiders, right? I remember watching an episode where they're fighting
They
spiders.
did. They
Yeah.
did. They picked the spiders, and I twisted the knife as much as I could, and they like found one of the survivors, but he was all fucked up and like he was poisoned and gonna die, but he was suffering. So he wanted the noble adventurers to take back his dying words to the town and to put him out of his misery, essentially. And they had a very just boss battle with the king spider at the end, and I think I sprinkled some loot in. Oh yeah, that's where they found Goop, which is their uh, Nigel, the pig's character, the wizard,
Yeah.
has a golem that follow. It's like a familiar almost
Uh-huh.
that follows him around. So
It's
that's where they found
fantastic.
him. Yeah,
Yeah, I remember tuning into the party bickering about like why did we pick the spiders kind of thing. Like this was we should have just killed the bird.
yeah, absolutely. And that's the perfect stuff, man. That's like the
Uh-huh.
best.
Oh, I love it.
That's my favorite stuff as a DM.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm trying to squeeze in like in the next like 15 minutes or so more of my questions.
Yeah.
Because you're doing a lot. Like we've covered a lot already, but you got a lot going on. So um we'll maybe circle back to more stuff with Neuro, but you also are running the Greenskin Invitational, which is a pretty cool
Yes.
one.
Yeah.
So how did that kind of come about?
That was really kind of on a whim almost.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't it's not like a dream of mine by any means to be like, I'm gonna be a tournament organizer
Mm-hmm.
or something like that, right? Like that's not like while that's cool, it's not necessarily my drive.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm okay at casting stuff, but I'm not like, I want to be a StarCraft 2 caster or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. So I did it as a way to stream for YouTube in a way where I
Mm.
was trying to produce content that translated very well to archived stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I also did it as a sub goal. So I'm always looking for holistic ways and organic ways
Mm.
to, hey, let's up the numbers. However we can, without
Yeah.
like just saying, listen, people, I'm not doing this unless you do this. But like, hey
Mm-hmm.
guys,
Mm-hmm.
once we hit this number, or once we get to here, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, let's do this. And so the first Greenskin Invitational was it was only for I remember what it was now. The first one was to once I hit 50 members of my StarCraft 2 clan. It was the
Mm-hmm.
Greenskin clan
Yeah.
that I made. I'm like, okay, this is cool. Once we hit 50, we'll do everyone who's in the clan. You can sign up and you can fight, you can participate, and I'll put up a cash prize at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and some other stuff too. So that was super fun. Then the second one, which happened just recently, I did as a 200 subscriber special.
Mm-hmm.
So when I hit 200 subs, and actually Grimmy just rated in, it was a holdout challenge versus him where anybody could sign up. You didn't have to be in my clan. You didn't have to be you didn't have to be a sub. You could be anyone you wanted. Didn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. You could sign up, and the longer you survived versus him, the higher place you got. If
Mm-hmm.
you beat him, you got the highest place, and etc. And it was just like a really fun way to now coordinate with other streamers, which I'm always looking for ways to do that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big reasons I'm doing this too is because I'm like, hell yeah, or it's got this cool thing. Let's take part in that. That sounds amazing. Um, and also give back to the community in better ways. Like
Hmm.
I am always trying to think of like what are cool things I can do to involve the people who've
Yeah.
invested time in my brand and in my community and take their time out of the day to be a part of this. I want to keep incentivizing that. I want to give people more look at what this guy's doing. You know, if I
Hmm.
was in
Hmm.
his community, I could have participated or seen or watched or whatever, right? And so that I'm always trying to think of good ways to do that, and that's probably one of the things I think about the most actually,
Hmm.
is how can I keep providing content that includes more people and seems really fun, and people have a
Yeah.
good time.
And I love that you kind of mentioned sort of the organic piece of it, right? Because I think there's a lot of stuff out there that is not that, right? And it's
Yeah. Yeah.
very, very, very refreshing to
Mm.
see somebody doing it the way you are, where it's like, I want to build up the community. And yeah, by the way, not a secret that I'm trying to make this my full-time gig, right? But like the
Yeah.
idea, it's weird to because I'm saying it, it's like this shit sounds so obvious, right? But at the same time, it's like somehow almost everybody misses this that you can have both, right? You can
Yeah.
have the I want to do this full time, but you can also have the I want to build up this community. I want to get people involved. I want to get them off the bench, whether it's spamming in chat because they're excited to watch their favorite, clan member battle, or whether it's
Hell
battling
yeah.
it out themselves, or any of it, right? Like I just love the idea that it's not one or the other, right? And you're like proof of that, right? It's not just this isn't just some lofty concept. You're showing that this actually works, which is really, really cool.
Well, I think I'm still learning everything. I'm by no means an expert at any of this.
Sure, sure.
So grain of salt on everything I've ever said about anything. Um But in my head, it helps defeat a little bit of the imposter syndrome that you can
Mm,
get. Like,
mhm.
oh, I don't deserve to be subscribed to, or what am I doing that's really good? So it helps combat against that.
Yeah.
Like, well, at least I put this tournament on and people had a good time.
Mhm.
But I also think that it has a lot longer lasting hold, if that makes sense.
Mhm,
There's
mhm.
there's kind of short term things that you can do, which I'm not trying to throw shade at any of those techniques to try to like get more subs or donation goals or whatever it is for that,
Mhm,
right? Like
mhm.
I have a donation goal up right now that's pretty, like yeah, I just need money. Like give me money
Sure.
so I can or something like that,
Right,
like
right,
sometimes
right.
that's how it is, and I try to spice that up as I can. Um Not everything has to be the most like insightful wisdom that you or thoughtful thing that you've ever done in your life, but when you have those opportunities to do that, I think those are gonna help you out way more. It's someone who
Mhm.
participated in your tournament, is way more likely to come back to your stream.
Right.
Somebody who has you have a YouTube video of them beating or playing against a player while you're casting their game and hyping them up, that makes them feel good, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So you're kind of you're just providing that to people, and while they're playing and giving you content, you're trying to also enrich their side of it as well. It's like I'm reinvesting in the community as much as I
Right.
can.
Yeah, that's very much always been my philosophy too, where and I guess, part of that it's easier for me, right? Because I'm not out here like risking my livelihood in the way that you are, right? But yeah, that's always been sort of my priority too. It's just like I'm only a part of this community because I want for the community to be bigger, better, stronger,
Mhm.
happier, whatever. Like and so for me it's always been very intuitive to do that stuff. But I guess yeah, I fell into the trap a little bit of like, oh, some of these things I don't know how to like promote myself without it feeling like scummy or whatever. Like, so it's really, really nice to see, I guess, an example, from you of like, here's how you can like, put on a tournament or an event or get people involved. Like, hey, I want to have a clan or whatever, and it doesn't feel gross. It's just like, hey, we're all having fun. Do you want to like, you want to come over here, like, come party with us, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I always try to if I do put it like the latest Greenskin Invitational, that was a
Hmm.
sub goal. If I
Yeah.
do have it behind that sort of thing, I'm not trying
Hmm.
to like have it as the perspective of, hey, I'm holding this hostage. You need to do this and before I give this to you. It's more
Right.
of,
Right.
hey
Right.
guys, when we get there, we're gonna have this fun thing that we're gonna do. It's
Hmm.
not like
Hmm.
it's whenever we get there. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
no
Yeah.
we're not rushing it, but hey, when we do, that's gonna be awesome, and we're gonna have this fun event to look forward to.
Hmm. Hmm.
And and so that's always the view that I try to have for it.
Yeah, I think that's super cool. So trying to like rattle through my mental list here of like different awesome things you do. So one of the other ones is some sort of coaching stuff with neuro,
Mhm.
right? Where you kind of sit down and work on, hey, this, I'm having trouble with this specific build. What are your thoughts? How long have you guys been doing that?
Yeah, so we haven't done that for a little while.
Mhm.
We've I've come to a spot where I've tried to take a lot of the improvement I get at the game into my own hands and seek
Mm.
it out. Not that he
Yeah.
would not from him by any
Mhm.
means. Not that he's like, you need to stop. I can't help you anymore. I'm sure if I asked him tomorrow, he'd be like, yeah, dude, let's do it, or
Sure,
something.
yeah.
But um, that was definitely I definitely got a lot of coaching from neuro. Basically that came about as, hey, I am struggling with this. You're a very good player. I know
Mm.
that you're a good player because I see you play. I like the way that you deal with this. Do you think can we take a look at this? Can we take a
Mhm.
look at
Mhm.
this? Actually, getting coaching from people was, I think, one of the things that improved my play the most.
Mm.
I got coaching from neuro, just in general. I think the couple of times that I did do it was like dedicated to ZVT. It was versus Terran.
Mhm.
Understanding that matchup at the time. I did another one with Vibe, which
Mhm.
was funny enough also about Terran, but a different style. It was dealing with mech
Uh-huh.
Terrans. I'm like, what the heck am I supposed to do with this? And he just laid it out. And then the third one that I did, I have them up on like YouTube and like in those kind of series orders, like, hey,
Mhm.
I got coaching. Come take a look and you can get whatever value you can
Yeah.
out of it too. Um, was with a friend of mine. His name's Kata Starcraft, and it was Cannon Rush defense.
Mm.
He's a great Cannon Rusher. I'm like, I don't know what to do against this. I don't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
He's like, just do this and let's practice it for an hour. And now it's just like, oh, this is a joke. Like you're actually gonna Cannon Rush me at this level? Like you don't know what you're doing. You're about
Uh-huh.
to get stomped. Like you don't know what's going on. And actually more recently, I have been trying to play custom games with people. Custom games have helped me out significantly as far as like dedicated practice goes. So,
Mhm.
I mean, just this last week, I think I probably played something close to like 10 to 12 hours with Grimmy. We just churned through ZVP after ZVP, trying to like, where did I mess up? What am I doing worse and better? And literally, just actually in that time, a builder that I struggled with greatly, and I would just lose to like the first couple units. Now I'm consistently able to take it more to like the 15-minute mark, the 20-minute mark. He's an amazing player. So I wouldn't, I don't know that I'll ever be able to actually beat him. Maybe one day. But like I've taken it further and I'm getting better. So I'm pretty
Mhm.
happy with that.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. Are there shows I'm forgetting or events that you run that I've left out? Trying to rack my brain here.
Um, I did a sub war with Vibe
Oh
recently.
yeah.
Yeah, that was sick. And it seems like I'm just riding on the coattails of Grimmy here because he also won us that one. Um, that was super fun. We had like bronze to gold versus bronze to gold, and if my player won, they stay in and they play against Vibe's platinum player,
Mhm.
stuff like that. And so it was almost like Pokemon. Like here's my
Yeah.
roster, here's your roster, put our team in. Here's my player until they get knocked out. I keep going with him. And it was really very cool because Vibe got an amazing player. Special actually was his GM
Mhm.
that he had for his team, and Grimmy was my GM, and it was an amazing matchup. But Grimmy did manage to win that one at the end. So fantastic job,
Grimmy.
buddy. Appreciate that quite a lot. But I'm looking for I want to do more of those type of things.
Mhm.
Sub wars are a very low amount of energy, high yield, high reward, kind of super fun events you can do. Um, and the only other one I can think of off the top of my head is I hosted the Pylon show that one time.
Which was so cool, man. Oh, that was a great time.
Yeah, that was funny enough. I had a clip for like a year now where I said, that I'll have made it not when I'm like financially stable or I'm like a GM player, but when I'm on the Pylon show. So
Uh-huh.
I finally got to do that, and it's amazing. And hopefully, I get to do it again in the future. I had so much fun. It was incredible. It was
Oh yeah,
amazing.
Pylon show's great, man. And I feel like that the particular show that you got to do was like so cool and you were like so like great in the role too. I forget who I was talking to about this, but I remember thinking like, "Oh man, I don't even know if there's a better person they could possibly like in the whole scene to be the like sort of conduct that, right? Like How did that idea sort of materialize?
Yeah, so that was and this is has been how I'm trying to frame a lot of networking for myself.
Mhm.
2021 I've really set a goal to network with as many streamers as I could possibly do so in meaningful ways, not
Sure,
just like,
yeah.
"Hey, let's hang out on a call or something, but let's do fun stuff." So,
Yeah, yeah.
one of the ways I'm trying to do that is approaching people with fully fleshed out ideas.
Mhm.
Not, "Hey, I wanna do this," but, "Hey, I wanna do this, and also here's the entire roadmap of how I could make it happen and how
Mhm.
we could make it happen." Give somebody an entire plan and solution so they have to think about it as little as possible,
Mhm.
and you will have a much higher likelihood of being able to do the thing that you wanna do.
Mhm.
That's worked now many, many times, so it's something I'm gonna continue to do. But, the way that I have that sort of came about is, well, for D&D, Cobra Venom is the person who helps us produce that. He helps do all the YouTube for it, and he's basically the brains behind the machinery part of it,
Mhm.
production. And I met Cobra at BlizzCon, same one that I met you at, actually,
Yeah.
which was super fun. And I had an amazing time. I'm so sad that Starcraft isn't gonna really be at it anymore, because I don't know if we're all gonna go. And I'm like,
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
guys
yeah, yeah.
go, I'll still go because I want to hang out, you know.
Yep.
But I got to meet Cobra and hang out and talk with him in more meaningful ways too. Um, so basically, as that relationship sort of developed over time, I said, "Hey, man, it's been a really big goal of mine. I'm not trying to like ask a favor. Can you put me on the pylon or something like that? But like, I want to know, like, hey, is there anything I can do to help? Is there something that I can provide to do so?" And I had this idea of um actually inspired by Hearthstone and his
Mhm.
rank roulette. Because I'm
Yeah.
like, holy fuck, that's such a good idea, and I'm so
Dude,
mad I didn't come up with it
that
first.
was my exact reaction. I was like, "Oh my god, this is the most brilliant shit anybody's ever thought of," and I'm so angry that he thought of it first.
Right? Like, it's just like, God, this is so genius.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I kind of was like, what other game shows would work really well, right? And I
Mhm.
was like, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, except for you do like StarCraft 2 trivia. And we call it
Mhm.
Who Wants to Be a GM. And at first I approached him with like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Do you think you could help me make it happen?
Mm.
Um, and as we started talking about it, it was like, this is gonna be really kind of hard because I don't have all these connections to the people that I want to have on it. And so instead, it sort of developed to, well, hey, do you want to do this on the Pylon show? Because this is a really good idea for that. Plus, we have the connections to kind of make it happen and the production and utility to also do it live.
Mhm.
And so I sort of weighed the options. And Cobra is such a sweet, sweet person. He's like, hey, listen, this is your idea. If you don't want to do it, you keep it and we can work at it to get it for yours. I just figured I'd offer, right?
Mhm.
Or at least put that out there and we'll see if we can make it happen.
Yeah.
And so I waited because there is something to think about. It's like, well, this could be potentially good content for my brand and what I'm doing.
Mhm.
But I was like, well, though, it still is really good content. It still is amazing, and I still would have my name a lot on it, and I get to be on the Pylon show, and I get to
Mhm.
host it. So I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, dude, let's do it. Let's absolutely let's go for it. So it all happened literally within the span of like 2 weeks. It
Mhm.
was like, okay, we got to make all the questions, we got to invite all the players, we got to get everything going and good. But it was incredible and amazing, and hopefully I get to be on the Pylon show again one day.
Oh yeah, man. I hope they have you back, whether it's for that or anything. Like, and I'm glad I got the backstory on that because it makes more sense now why you fit so well into that. Because I thought it was the other way around. I thought they're like, well, we need something to do for this week. We'll do a game show, whatever. Who would be good? Oh, Apoptosis would be good. Like, but it makes way more sense now because before I'm like, wow, this like, it fits you like a glove. It's so fun. And you're so like fun in the role too. Like the players are just chaos, and you're trying to rein everybody in and be like, hey, sit down, listen, we're doing a game show here. It was such fun energy, man. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was such a blast, and everybody. The thing that makes it, like I felt very similarly with like D&D, and
Mm,
everyone's like, "Holy!" Like, not to try to, pat myself on the back, but everyone's like, "Oh my god, this looks like so much fun," or "I wish my campaign was kind of like that." And all credit really goes to the players, and in that episode to the contestants, because it's
mm,
just like it's so easy to be a good DM, or it's so easy to be a good host when the people who you're hosting for or you're playing D&D with are just like savant level, improvers and can
mm-hmm.
just totally just have fun with it and go with
Right.
it. And so the vibe was 100% correct in my opinion, and it just like played out. I couldn't have asked for a better show.
Yeah, so good, man. And you kind of mentioned that sort of particular evening at BlizzCon where we all hung out. Like, oh, I'm glad you said it too, because it's been weighing on my heart, man. Like that night, literally. I forget who I said this to recently. Like, I think it would probably was my peak moment in Starcraft, just
Oh,
flat out. Like,
sure.
I don't think that I'm ever gonna probably have more fun in one day than I did that. Like, I
Yeah.
literally sat down like with both halves of Tastosis and had drinks and
Yeah.
shot the shit. And then like we spent I don't know how many hours after almost everybody left, like me and you and Cobra and Chicken Man and Neuro and there were a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people there that night.
Everybody. Pretty much
Yeah.
any person you could think of in StarCraft 2 made an
Right. Yeah,
appearance.
yeah, yeah.
It
See, I
was
shouldn't have
just hanging.
listed people because now I'm become the asshole who forgot somebody, right? But
Well, it seriously was. I can't think. It's a smaller list who probably was not there that night,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
absolutely all right. I'm on the exact same page as you. That was such an amazingly fun time, and it breaks my heart a little bit. I'm hoping that you know, damn, like we can all meet up again somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
Like
I mean, we gotta just yeah, we gotta just decide. Like, okay, is it BlizzCon? If it's not BlizzCon, okay, which DreamHack are we going to, or
what it,
whatever it is, and just everybody go.
where are we all going, guys? Because that was. I agree with you. One of the most fun nights I think I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And was absolutely massive for networking with people. I wouldn't
Oh my
have really
God. Yeah.
probably known who you not that I wouldn't have known who you were, but I wouldn't have like, "Hey, man, like, let's definitely do something," or
Right.
let's have you on D&D," which we still definitely actually need to do.
Oh, that'd be so fun. Yeah, I'm super down. I played with Adraseth and Lord Cranial and Daw
Mhm.
recently in Kessnuts the other day. So I've
Nice.
got my feet wet with fifth edition.
Yeah, there we go, there we go. We have like, a guest episode has always been like, "Oh, yeah, we should totally do that one day." We
Uh-huh.
just have never like, "Okay, we're gonna do it,"
Right, right, right,
Like,
right, right. Well, one day. All right, man. I've taken a big chunk of your time, more than I said I would. But let's give you a moment to talk about, let's promote some stuff, right? We got extra
yeah,
eyes, right? Because I'm doing a lot of these interviews.
absolutely.
So I mean, you've put it out there. You're looking to network with people in StarCraft 2 streaming. You're looking to do ideas that you think are cool and organic and sort
Yes.
of grow in ways that are legit and authentic. Is that
100%. Yeah, I'm not, I'm that's my two gigantic goal this year, is which I kind of already set, or network with as many people as I could in like holistic ways with as much fun content that I can. And hit partner. Those are the two things I literally would love to accomplish this year. If I can do those two things, I'll be a happy camper. But yeah, I mean, you guys know where to find me. I'm over at twitch.tv/apoptosis808, which is pretty much the same thing on Twitter and YouTube and all of those other spots as well. So if you're ever in the area and you're looking for a Zerg player who plays late at night, and you need someone to fall asleep to, come on by. I'd love to see
Yeah.
you.
And if you're a streamer who streams in my time slot, I can tell you for sure right about the time when you're ending. That's
Hmm.
around the time my man Apop's going live. So just,
There you go.
I'm not
Just
saying, I'm just saying, maybe every couple 2-3 nights, maybe send a raid over. The man's pushing partner. He's trying to go full time. Like, can we lift
thank
up one
you.
of our own here, people? That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. Yeah, man. This is this kind of thing exactly. Interacting and rubbing shoulders and having just fun conversations with community members and pillars of StarCraft 2, which I definitely would consider you to be one, Aora.
Oh, thank you, man.
Is exactly the kind of thing that I'm hoping to do and work towards. So I had a blast, and thank you so much for having me on the show. It is a pleasure, and anytime you can ever think of having me back for any reason, you let me know, buddy, because talking with you is just absolute gem.
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah, pleasure's all mine. It's so fun every time. It's so easy. I don't know what it is, but my green rooms are always blessed when you're there. I get through it like that, no
Right?
issues.
Insta.
Um, yeah, love it, man. Well, thank you so much, and yeah, we'll do something. I don't know what it is, but we'll do something soon.
Hell yeah.
Um, I will get all of your socials and shove them below the YouTube thing whenever I upload it. And yeah, I guess that's it. I will hide you behind a BRB screen so we can disconnect the call.
Right
And
on.
yeah, everybody go follow him. I feel like everybody who's here basically is like one of your subs anyway. But you know, if anybody out there is lurking and you aren't following Apop, please go do it. But thank you once again, man. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on.